Hi guys, Robin here from She's From Scratch. So I am down in the barn today and I am only about a week away from being back in milk. My good cow Annabelle is looking like she's really close to going to calve soon. I wouldn't say in the next couple days, but for sure in the next week she's going to be calving and I'll be back in milk making cheese. Very exciting. So I wanted to give you guys a little barn tour today and show you some of the things that I'm doing to make sure that Annabelle, my milk cow, is supported when she calves. A lot of times when people think about how to support their milk cows, they think directly ahead to kind of the calving part. How do we help our milk cows when they calve, when they're freshened? But something that's really important is making sure that you're supporting them in the time before they're going to calve, specifically the 2 weeks before they're going to calve. This is a huge time for setting your cow up for a successful lactation, and that's something that I want to talk a little bit with you guys about today. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what I'm feeding Annabelle currently. So currently Annabelle is out on pasture. She is on an older pasture that isn't really fresh grass. It's all of the grass is headed out there. And the reason that I have her on this pasture specifically is because I don't want her to be eating a diet that's really high in calcium. So a common milk cow illness that affects freshened milk cows is something called milk fever. And what milk fever is it's a really low blood calcium level. So cows, they calve, all of a sudden there's this huge demand for milk, for producing milk, this huge demand for calcium in this milk. And all of this calcium is pulled from their bloodstream. Now, cows that are able to kind of ride this storm of milk fever, this storm of low blood calcium, are the cows that are able to continually mobilize a little bit of calcium from their bones. So it's good for cows to be able to mobilize this calcium because they're able to ride this storm better. So I want my cow to be on a low calcium diet as she approaches her calving in the 2 weeks before she's going to calve, because that's going to force her body to need to be still producing a little bit of calcium from her bones to meet her needs, and it will help her ride that milk fever storm better. It's pretty much inevitable that a milk cow is going to have low blood calcium level when they calve. There's definitely cows that are at higher risk for it. For example, cows that are older, cows that are high producers, cows that come from lines that are more prone to it, like Jerseys or Guernseys, cows that have had it before. Those are all cows that are more susceptible to it. But regardless, all milk cows are at risk of developing milk fever. And calcium is a really important piece in controlling the smooth muscle function of cows' bodies. Everything is controlled by smooth muscles. Whether it's their rumen, whether it's their mobility, whether it's their heart, everything is controlled by smooth muscles. So you can imagine this is a very severe illness. Luckily, it's very easy to treat if you have the IV calcium on hand and you're prepared to treat it. But really, in this 2 weeks before our cow is going to calve, this is our time when we can kind of help to prepare her and hopefully prevent her from actually getting sick with milk fever. Another thing that I'm doing to help prevent milk fever in my milk cow is I'm going to be feeding her apple cider vinegar. I have been feeding her apple cider vinegar every day for 2 weeks before she calves. I'm feeding her 120 mils. And I'm just mixing it in with a little bit of grain for her. She gobbles it all up. And what this is going to do is it's also going to stimulate her bones to continually release a little bit of calcium. The acidity of it does this. And so it's just one kind of holistic way to help prevent milk fever in your milk cows. As I said, I am feeding my milk cow a little bit of grain. So the reason that I'm feeding Annabelle a little bit of grain as she approaches calving is that I'm trying to start her on something called a transition diet or lead feeding. So I'm preparing her for her diet that she's going to be starting to eat once she does calve. So when she does calve, she may need to consume grain to be able to meet all of her nutritional needs. Grain is a really great source of nutrients because it's so concentrated. Unlike hay, where yes, there is nutrients in that hay, in grain, it's just there is so much concentrated nutrients. And so that's why it's a really good feed for milk cows, is because they have huge nutritional requirements. They could still eat a belly full of this hay, and then they could eat their grain, and they're just going to be getting so much more nutrients than that cow that is only eating a belly full of hay. Regardless of the quality of the hay, they're still going to probably need something else to help meet those nutritional requirements. I diverse. But the purpose of this is that I want to start to wean her onto grain. You never want to put a cow on a full ration of grain right off the bat, because that's just going to be hard on their gut. So I'm starting her on like 5 pounds of grain. I'm going to give her 5 pounds of grain every day for a week. Then I'll start her on 10 pounds of grain, 10 pounds of grain every day for a week. And then by the time she calves, I can either start her on whatever I think her full ration should be. So usually the rule of thumb with grain with a cow is that you're going to want to be feeding them 3 pounds of grain per gallon of milk that they're producing. So if I thought that animal is going to be producing 5 gallons of milk after she is calved, I'm going to need to be feeding her 15 pounds of grain. Now, Annabelle is a little bit different because she's actually a grass-fed milk cow for the most part. I've only had her for about a year, or a little, actually over a year now, but I've never calved her out before. I bought her from a dairy farm that specifically only has grass-fed milk cows. They have bred for really good genetics that are good at maintaining their own body condition and producing milk on grass alone. But even still, even though she went through her entire lactation the last year with no grain and she kept her body condition and she produced enough milk for us, I'm a little bit nervous taking her into calving with no grain. And the reason for that is that I don't want her to calve and then need a full ration of grain, and I haven't started her on that at all. I want her to calve, be supported, and then as I know that she is supported, as I know that she is being able to keep up, basically, then I can start weaning her off of it. So I'm just doing this as a preventative measure. I don't anticipate that she's going to need 15 pounds of grain, even if she's producing 5 gallons of milk, just because that's not her body type. Her body type is really good at maintaining her condition, but we'll see. I just want to make sure that I'm covering all the bases, and so that I'm prioritizing her health over my wants for a grass-fed milk cow. And why do I want a grass-fed milk cow? This is a divergent, off on a little tangent thing, but why do I want a grass-fed milk cow? I'm not against grain at all. I think grain has its place. It's a really good concentrated nutrient source, but we don't produce grain on our ranch. On our ranch, we produce all of our own hay, and we are able to feed that to our cows, and we have to buy the grain. And it's not a big deal to buy it. Our cows, they give us a lot of milk. They're very valuable to us, but it is nice to be able to bring everything a little bit closer to home. And so I've been experimenting with these grass-fed lines. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, I'm starting her on grain because, yeah, that's what I need to do to support her health. So I'm going to show you over here. I'll take you on a little journey here through the barn. I'm going to show you what I'm doing to help prevent mastitis with Annabelle after she calves. So after a cow calves, it's a really common time that cows can actually develop mastitis. And even in the 2 weeks before they calve, it's a really prone time for cows developing mastitis. And the reason for this is that if you've ever had a cow calve before or get close to calving, you know that their udders start to become engorged. They might even start to leak milk. And when they're starting to leak milk, this is your sign that their teat orifices, the end of their teat, I don't know what you call it, teat canals, are actually open. And usually these are protected by a little plug. And so if, climb the fence here. Oh, hi Bree. Hey girl. This is Bree, my heifer. Good girl. Alright, so if they're starting to leak milk, that's your sign that if the milk can get out, bacteria can get in. And so this can be a really prone time for cows to develop. I'll set you down here. There we go. This can be a really prone time for cows to develop mastitis. So when you have a cow that's going to be calving, you want to make sure that you are giving them really nice, clean bedding, and you're encouraging them to lay in that nice, clean bedding. Because we all know that, you can lay out the bedding and your cow's not necessarily going to lay in it. They might go and lay in the mud puddle. But I put it in the nice shelter. It's hot out. They're probably going to come in here to lay down and rest. And if it's nice and clean, when she's laying down, even if her udder is leaking milk, there's less of a chance of bacteria being able to get up in there, take hold, and cause mastitis. So that's something that's really important to me because I have had a problem with it before. If you absolutely cannot get your cow to lay in your nice clean bedding, or if it's really mucky and you have bad drainage in your shelter, whatever reason it is, you can actually do a post-heat dip on your milk cow in the 2 weeks before they're going to calve. You can just go out and a couple times a day just dip their teats with iodine teat dip, and that's going to help to keep them from getting any bacteria up in there. So that's another way that you can support your milk cow and her udder health. So another really important thing to help your cow as she approaches calving is to make sure that she's in a good condition in the 2 weeks prior to her going into calving. So your goal up until this 2 weeks before is to get them in an optimum condition for calving. And you can use body condition scoring off of Penn State University. They have a really good resource on there, had a body condition score, but typically you want your milk cow landing in about a 3.5 on the body condition score as they approach the calving date. And as they do get closer to calving, they're going to have a decreased appetite, so you don't want to be trying to gain weight in the 2 weeks before they're going to be calving, but you also don't want them to be really fat when they go into calving. And the reason for this is that it opens them up to have a lot higher risk of developing something called ketosis. And what ketosis is, hi Bree. What ketosis is a negative energy balance. So instead of consuming the nutrients that they need to consume, they're actually needing to start to dig into their fat stores. And when they do this, their liver leaves behind fatty acid in their liver, and then this causes all sorts of different problems for them. It can be quite severe, and it can also just be mild. But either way, you don't want your cow to be developing ketosis. So having them in an optimum body condition before they go into calving is really helpful. So unfortunately, Annabelle is too fat. She's probably, I don't know, I'm not very good at body conditioning, but I would say she's probably at least a 4, if not a 4.5, but I don't think she's a 4.5. Although I've been told she looks like a 5 from people on Instagram, so I don't know, she's fat. So I really need to be being careful when she calves that I'm watching for signs of ketosis. So signs of ketosis would be decreased appetite. Usually they're gonna start refusing the grain before they start refusing forages. Sweet smelling breath, low production. So if I thought she was gonna produce a lot more than she's actually producing, would be nice. What else? Then they can get neurological problems, they can have wobbly gait, they can have really similar symptoms to milk fever, and it can be life-threatening to them. So one thing that I make sure that I have prepared before my cow's going to calve is that I have ketosis test strips on hand. I'm doing that lead feeding. That's actually primarily why I am lead feeding Annabelle with the grain, is because she is too fat, and that seems opposite of what you should do, is feed your cow more food when she's fat. But I really don't want her to be needing to dig into her fat stores after she calves. She has more fat. She's a fat cow. She doesn't have as big of an appetite because she is a fat cow, and so she is at a higher risk than a normal size cow of developing ketosis. So I'm making sure that I'm giving her really concentrated nutrients, really palatable food after she calves that she actually likes, making sure that I keep her eating. One thing that I'm going to do for her is after she calves, like right after she calves, I'm going to give her a bucket of warm water with a cup of molasses in it. And that's going to give her a little energy boost to hopefully entice her to have the energy to be able to eat. Because with cows, milk cows, you just really, really want them to continue to eat after they calve. If they're not eating, their rumen's not working, and they're starting to mobilize fat, and that will lead you to ketosis. All right. What else can I tell you guys? Yeah, so I will maybe do a video on what I do, what I'm having on hand to help prevent milk fever and ketosis after they calve. One thing that I'm going to be doing with Annabelle is she's going to be getting oral calcium boluses. She's actually right here. She just walked in the barn. There's my fat cow. So I'm going to be giving her oral calcium boluses right after she calves, and then 12 hours later. I'm worried about milk fever with her, not only because she is overweight, but also because she's older. She's like 8 or 9, 8-ish, I think. And also because she's a high producer. So old, high producer, those are kind of more chances of developing milk fever. As far as I know, she's never had milk fever before, but I think she just looks like I need to do some preventative measures for her. So yeah, those are some of the things that I'm doing to help support my milk cow as she approaches calving. She looks good other than being too fat. She's happy. I feel like she's going to calve, not this week, but probably maybe on the weekend or something. Zach's going away on the weekend, so she's probably going to calve when he's gone. But yeah, other than that, those are just some things that I'm doing. So thank you guys very much for watching my video. I hope that it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments down below, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, because I hope once she does calve to be able to produce some more cheese videos. As always, I have a lot of information on my website, so Cheese from Scratch. Also on my Instagram channels, there's quite a bit of, or my Instagram account, there's quite a bit of resources on there as well. So yeah, really great of you guys to watch the video. Thanks. Bye.